Dissolution of monasteries. The dissolution of monasteries in social history of England. The dissolution of monasteries happened after the Reformation movement. I have given the link for the Reformation video in the description box, so please do watch it and have a clear view of that. In short, if we speak about the Reformation movement, it is a great religious movement which was started by Martin Luther of Germany. So, under that movement, Christianity was divided into two: Protestantism and Roman Catholicism. England became the head to Protestant religion, and Rome became the head to Roman Catholic religion. So, this is actually about the religious movement which happened during the Reformation period. The monasteries of England have a very big connection to the Reformation period, because the monasteries, we can say, it is a place in which the nuns, the friars, the monks, people who serve God, people who work for the church, those people, the place where they stay, we call it as monasteries. So when England became the Protestant country during the time of Henry VIII, the Church of England became the head of Protestant religion, and Henry VIII was actually called as the head of Church of England according to the Act of Supremacy, which he passed it on 1534. So the king officially became the head of the church, and all the activities which is happening in the church, the bill passed in the church, all the acts which was meant for the church, everything has to be under the royal government. And even appointing the bishop, everything was governed by the king. So the church cannot take any decision after that. So this was happening, and during that time Henry VIII was also in need of money. He got a great fortune from his father Henry VII, but he used all the money for campaigns in France and for also putting up a lot of shows in the court. The next reason for the dissolution of monasteries is the monks who were still loyal to the Pope. Even though England became a Protestant country at that time, some of the monks who were loyal to the Pope, they really wanted to change England back to Roman Catholic rule. So this was not able to take up by Henry VIII. So he wanted to take revenge against them. So when Henry VIII, when he came to know that 1/6 of the cultivated land in the country were governed by the monks of the England, and apart from that, the untold wealth which they had, like plays, jewels, and robes, all those things tempted the king to take that away from them, because already that he is in need of money. He didn't have money in the treasury. So when seeing the monks being loyal to the Pope, he wanted to take all those things. So this was the second reason why the dissolution of monasteries happened. The next reason was the supplication of beggars. The supplication of beggars is a pamphlet which was written by the common people, which was addressed to the king. This pamphlet clearly suggested that the clergy, especially the monks and the friars, must be deprived from their wealth and benefit of the king and the kingdom, and they must work their daily life like a common man, because they were under the church governance, they enjoyed pleasure seeking. They started involving in a lot of illegal activities. The church was not controlled in a very straight manner, even though a lot of uh, acts and lot of bills and lot of things were taken under the king's suggestion. The church was not still correct, so the common people were not able to take that into account. So the supplication of beggars were written to the king to address all these things which was happening in the name of clergy, monks, and pharisees. They wanted them also to work like a common people. The next reason is the dissolution of small monasteries. So when all these things were put forth, the small monasteries were dissolved. In 1536, King Henry VIII passed a parliamental bill in which he said that small monasteries who worth around $200 per year will be dissolved. So for the first year, almost 400 monasteries were dissolved. So after that, there were lot of riots and lot of conflict was happening against the king at that time. But Henry VIII, he didn't stop. He started destroying a lot of big monasteries. So at the end of the thing, we can say that um, he wanted to destroy all the monasteries, but before that, he died. So the task for that, which was given to his younger son, Edward VI. Since a lot of monasteries were dissolved, there were a lot of things which was happening in England. According to G.M. Trevelyan, we can say that 5,000 monks, 1,600 friars, and 2,000 nuns were sent back to the common world. Just like that, when the monasteries were dissolved, when the monasteries were destroyed, they didn't have no other place to go. So they were sent back to the common life. They were allowed to live common life like every person in the community, and they were asked to work for their living. So this was happening, and some loyal monasteries who worked for the king were not destroyed. So this was prevailing, and mainly the nuns, they were just left out in the world. They were given a gown from the king, and they were just like that, they were left out without no clue. Some were given a pension around $25 to $1,000, but most probably they were not taken care to a great extent when England basically became Protestant. So now dealing about the properties. The properties which was under the monks after the dissolving the monasteries, it was taken back to the royal treasuries. We spoke about the untold plates, jewels, and robes of the monks, which everything, all those things, it came to the royal treasury, and the land which the monks had, which was under the king now, and the land property were given to people under three bases. First is the royal coffer, the next is the new bishoprics who were appointed, they were given, and the last was a share which was given as a reward to the gentlemen who served the country. So under these three contexts, the land was given to the people, and some share of the king, the share which the king had, was used for the upliftment of the Trinity College and the Cambridge College. Apart from that, the a harbour and the Royal Navy of England was governed during the king at that time, and that was growing in a very big level during Henry VIII's time. So on the whole, when we say about the dissolving of monasteries and the land property which was dissolved to the people, we can say that the land which was sold to the common people was mainly brought by the noblemen and the landlords and the merchants of that place. So many people, they started being independent, they became landlords, and they started having a good lifestyle, though they pay all the taxes, and though they did whatever the king said, but they were able to have a stabilized life. But on the other hand, because of the dissolution of the monasteries, the common nuns, the people who were not living in big monasteries, they were deprived from their day to day life. They were not able to live a good life. Apart from those people, when we speak about the poor people, when the standard of living was getting higher in England, the common people were not able to reach that margin. They were having a lot of difficulties in that, because when monasteries were there, there were libraries in that. When they want food, at times the monasteries will provide food for the poor people. So when all these things were uh, just dissolve just in a few years, everything was there like a question mark for the small monasteries people who stayed in that, and for the common people. And great manuscripts which were stored in the libraries of the monasteries were also destroyed. So, on the whole, at last, when we can say that the dissolution of the monasteries, on one hand, it brought a lot of good changes, the development of England were good, but when we look at the poor and the low class daily wage owner people, they were not having a good and stabilized life.